Congratulations to NIO for coming in with a new monthly delivery record. And oh, yeah, they also hit guidance. I think that surprised a lot of people. We're going to have to circle back to that, though, and then we'll drill down and I'll talk about why I think October is going to surprise. I've already seen people in the comment section thinking that the first week of October, because it's a holiday, is going to be problematic for NIO. We're going to address that and a whole lot more here a little bit later, including why we're probably going to see another new monthly delivery record. And yeah, NIO does have a shot at 50,000 in October. So hang in there and we'll come back to it. I wanted to share the two different posts where NIO put the news out. I believe they actually posted on Twixter first. I call the platform formerly known as Twitter. I call it Twixter. But I think they posted there first. And then they have a couple different places on the NIO website where they, sometimes do their postings. But this time it wasn't where I actually thought it was going to be. So had to dig to find it. Anyway, I'll link both of them. Enough talk about that. Just nerdy research stuff that I'm talking about. Let's talk about stock price action today and what that led me to look at. And by the way, if folks are out there talking about a short squeeze or that we're in the middle of one, or NIO to 10 or NIO to 100 or NIO to whatever right now, they're not paying enough attention. So send them over to the channel and have them get into some of the research that I've been sharing for the last, 1 to 2 years. But let's drill down. And sorry, I'm just being direct. There's a lot I've got to cover. So this is what we saw today. Low trade volume. All right. Only about 51 million shares traded. And I am recording this after the trade day. I wanted to see the full trade day before I did a video. This is the recent reversal and the uptrend that we're in. Market makers, I think, have had to pay literally. I think it's cost them that NIO has made some of the moves it's made. More on that a little bit later. I've got a lot queued up. So let's stay focused and on task. This is the pre-morning 8 a.m. Eastern time 5-minute incremental window that I thought was curious because the high on this was $7.81. The low was $7.51. And what that looked like in the dark pool, first off, I was curious. I wanted to see what the off exchange or the dark pool, meaning what probably institutional investors are doing today on a day where we had a very low trade volume. Almost 60% of the volume was traded in off exchanges. So we've got market makers who also have short or put positions in NIO who may want to control stock price. So this is what I did. I came down to the NIO dark pool print section, and these are all the exchanges. And all I did is I removed all of these so that we could focus and lock in on just the dark pool. All right, this is what it looked like. This is that 8 a.m. 5-minute incremental window that I just showed. And by the way, if you'll note at the top, you see the dark pool. This is where all of the trading took place in the dark pools. And a couple things we'll have to talk about here. But first off, let's focus on this one. If you look over here on the left-hand side, you'll see the dark print in the bar versus the total volume, which is shown over here. So for this 5-minute incremental window, the total volume traded was 1.31 million shares, and the dark pool print was 1.3 million. So almost everything that happened there was in the dark pool. And all I want to know when I see this is that it means we have no true transparency. We may not even be seeing actual price with its true price action. We may be kept from actual price discovery, and I'll show you why I say that in just a minute. But there's something else I want to point out as well. When we see these bubbles in the dark pools, it could mean that there is an inordinate or an extraordinary amount of trading happening in the dark pools that could be, yes, messing with stock price. In other words, there could be manipulation. And this is, if you're curious, I just did a quick look and pull up so that this can be a reference point for anybody who wants to look into this a little bit more on your own. And dark pools are private exchanges allowing anonymous securities trading, offering benefits for institutional investors like price stability and large trades. Now, if you've got a market maker who's also a short, who is wanting to control stock price, it might make sense for them to do a lot of trading, especially on a low trade volume day in the dark pools, to make sure they can control stock price action. Now, I was curious and I wanted to look up the one suspicious short that I've talked about, also a market maker who's had a short position in NIO since back. I think I first talked about them in about 2021 when the stock price was over $40. I said, hey, heads up, this is something we might want to just pay attention to. It's these folks right here. And they still have a put position of over 8 million shares. Okay. But I'm not done. This is my reference when I talked about how we may not be seeing true price discovery. This is just a $7 million penalty that was charged to that same company when over a 5-year period, it is estimated that they incorrectly marked millions of orders inaccurately, denoting that certain short sales were long sales and vice versa. In other words, real time, we may not even be seeing true price action. And if we see that low trade volume, it is easier for shorts, especially if they're market makers wanting to control stock price and take things to, let's say, a max pain level. So at the end of the week, let's say this Friday, October 3rd, 2025, if max pain is $7, maybe we see a repeat of what we saw last week. By the way, I have a video and I didn't have time to dig. I'm not sure which video it was. I did a video in the last few months before, or either early on or before NIO made its reversal. And I'm telling you, this max pain in the short term, these prices were very different. I remember seeing 350 and kind of mentally just thinking, oh, I wonder if that's going to change if NIO starts making a run. And what we've seen is these shorter term price points for the max pain have changed. But that also makes me wonder if market makers, and that includes some of the shorts who have those short positions or put positions, have paid a price literally, and now they're more focused on controlling stock price. So it is worth noting that yes, NIO could have a short squeeze and we could see a lot more upward price action. However, if low trade volume remains the norm, I'm just not going to count on it, and I will keep researching things and nerding out and sharing it here on the channel. But let's talk about now this idea of the national holiday and how that's going to hurt NIO. And I had said before that the first full week in October was going to be an important week for me to see what NIO comes in with on the insurance registration data side of things. I still believe that. I still think we need to see, and I want to see a 6,300 number or better, provided, of course, there are some days where the government offices are open and so they can get some numbers in. But I don't know if that's going to be the case. So we will have to wait and come back and track the data. But more on that in a second, because I'm not done here. This is what's going on October 1st in Hefei. Hefei, really, one of the things that NIO benefited in, it was the leverage play back when NIO was in trouble, the positioning and the leverage play that William Li did to position them and help put Hefei on the map. Now that NIO Park is there and they are becoming globally known, this is exactly the kind of long-term relationship and leverage play is what I've called it, that William Li is brilliant at. Here's why I think October numbers are still going to be really strong for NIO. That's not all, though. I've got a few more things queued up. During the national holiday, all NIO factories will only take 2 days off and will work overtime to increase production. So they're not having a problem at this point. The demand is so strong for Onvo L90 and NIO ES8. And by the way, that's going to bring more eyes, turn them to all of the vehicles across all 3 brands for NIO. So with this, we've also got this note, and I want to talk briefly about numbers because in October, the Onvo L90 production capacity will exceed 15,000 units. Now they got about 10,000 in September, and in August they did 10,575 or something like that. So 10,000 is kind of the floor for the Onvo L90. The demand is there. They just need to get the production and delivery part out. And what, as I said before, what we won't know is if we're going to see if government offices are closed, maybe the insurance registrations, will be off a week or so. I'm not sure. We'll have to wait and find out how that goes. So asterisk on that. But as far as the actual deliveries go for the month of October, we could definitely see a 15,000 number for the Onvo L90. And they're also going to have the refresh of the Onvo L60. And those numbers actually ticked up, at the end of September. So I also expect those to be strong numbers. How strong, I don't know. We'll track the data as we get it. How about Firefly? This is more incentives in creative marketing that NIO is doing to make sure they continue it's an uptrend with Firefly. They've already done more on the demand side and production and deliveries than what they expected to do. I think they were only anticipating about 3,000 a month. So we don't even know what the upside potential for Firefly is just yet. So also worth monitoring and tracking moving forward. The ES8, by the way, NIO is probably maxed out at about 10,000 on the monthly side of things for October and November. But even so, 10,000 of that, 15,000 of the Onvo L90, you're talking about 25,000, and that's without Firefly and all the other NIO models and without the Onvo L60. So see where I'm going with this? we should definitely see a new monthly delivery record once again in October. The kind of unknown is that asterisk on, government, when insurance registration data will actually be filed and come through and that sort of thing. So how about this? If this is, and I'm not really hung up on this, I'm going to continue to track data when we get it. And that is the best indicator. And it's why, frankly, I really didn't know if we were going to see NIO come in and hit guidance, but I was confident when we saw that 10.8 number that they would be close for the third quarter. So, and that's just because I've been tracking the data so long. So this is a bit rumor mill-ish. I'm not too worried about this. What I want to see is this translate through in October on insurance registration numbers, and then on the delivery side for the full month. I think a lot of people were surprised by the third quarter and NIO being able to come in with their guidance. But here's the thing that I took away from that. Just like they knew that they were undertaking a lot of change with Onvo the L90 and with NIO the ES8 to try and meet demand and get deliveries out, they also knew that there was going to be this holiday week, which it doesn't surprise me that they're going to work and continue to try and get good numbers out, especially since they gave us a goal of 50,000 for the last 3 months of the year. It's still a huge number to hit, but they have proven the ability to do, even in a very short period of time, just with 10 days of the ES8 in September and with Factory 3 just coming online, they've done very well early on. So this was just a fun chart. I really like this presentation, so I wanted to share it. And I think I've talked a long time, so let me check time. Oh yeah, wow. Over 10 minutes. That's like forever in this day and age, right? Especially if we're not using AI to look things up. This also was fun. I really liked this breakdown, so I also wanted to share this. And actually, there's more that I could say, but I think I've gone on longer than probably necessary, and it's probably already overkill because, there's just NIO's, they are doing their part. However, as the hype on the retail side, especially with folks throwing out, all these upward price targets and not really paying attention to things that really may have a bigger impact short-term on the stock price action, I just want to caution and say, let's stay focused on the research. And you don't have to, I will, and I'll just keep sharing it here. So, but anyway, it is, hang on. I want to come back and look at NIO to see if anything crazy has happened in the 10 minutes or so we've been talking. Okay, now volume, stock price is about where it closed the day, 765. And oh, by the way, I didn't mention this before, but we did get up to 790 off the top of this wick. But again, this, and once again, this was 930. Hang on, let's pull up the dark pool and look at it so you can see what I do. So here's 930. Oh, there's a bubble. No manipulation here. I know I'm going to offer this since I keep talking anyway. People talk about, why don't we complain? Why don't we file something with the regulators? I would be all about that if I thought something was going to change or improve. But the reality is, a major player on Wall Street that is a market maker, that is very well connected, that puts a ton of money into this, that can afford to take millions of dollars in fines off of doing things, let's say, that are suspicious at the very least. They don't care. I mean, they're making money. They're making a lot of money, and that's what it's about. And if we are easy targets for them to prey on, and if we buy into and don't pay attention to all the things that are saying, hey, this could go either way, there's no guarantee that it's going to go up, especially if, let's say, in the short term, they haven't changed their thesis and they continue to think that shorting Chinese stocks is easy and they can keep making easy money, and that they're not going to get in trouble for it. I mean, we're in the US markets. Who's going to get mad at them for that? Probably nobody, even if they know they're doing it. So, this is harsh reality, brutal honesty here. But I want to be as neutral and just stay focused on the research and the data side of things. And long term, I didn't even put the long term stuff up on the screen today, but because I knew things were looking a little suspect, a little suspicious just from today, from what I'm seeing on screen here. So this was that 5-minute window from 930, and out of a total volume 4.74 million, 1.48 was in the dark pool. What was interesting though is last week when I showed the pre-market one, it was not dark pool. So I did think it was pretty interesting that this is dark pool. Now, hey, if somebody wants to say, no, it's definitely going to go up, this wasn't market makers or anyone messing, shorts trying to control stock price action. This is someone buying. Okay, then we should see that reflected with the stock price moving up. But I'm going to defer to, and it's why I've kept it on the bottom of the screen, this low trade volume. The big trade volume is the one thing that can offset the FTDs. That's what I've come to believe after several years of tracking the data. So anyway, I definitely talked way more than I needed to, but I wanted to offer a few things and not get too hung up on just one thing like price action and, or the fundamentals, because, I think from a fundamental standpoint, if we separate completely from stock price, NIO's beautiful, incredibly positioned. But if, for example, William Lee doesn't realize, that shorts are still in play and he may need to take some action, they may need to get creative and do something like, and I'm just going to offer the teaser. And, if somebody wants to pass it along, and this is consistent with my bear thesis, and I'm sorry, I keep talking. I'm on one. What can I say? I'm going to keep it going here for a minute. The bear video and that thesis, one of the things that I said is if bears or shorts are going to maintain control, one thing that they may realize is they can get away with it through the end of the year, because they maybe can. If trade volume doesn't come up and then stay up elevated over 100 million shares on enough days, then they may be able to control this thing all the way through the end of the year, because even if NIO does have a profitable Q4, and I do think they've got an excellent shot, now that we're seeing just a taste of, a teaser of what they can do with Factory 3, and we know the demand is there, it's definitely in play. However, they usually don't do that reporting until March of the next year. So if shorts know that, then they may not care, and they may just mess with this thing all the way through the end of the year. And so I'm not saying either way. I mean, you can't ignore the left side of the screen, which it's obviously that, clear that a reversal has come in. However, what kind of an uptrend are we in? Is this going to revert back? I don't want to take anything off the table, which is why I keep the 3 short-term stock price indicators at the bottom of the screen, because I'm not going to remove them until I'm confident that we are in a clear uptrend. And it's, and maybe that means I keep it on here until we see even a full year of profitability. I really don't know. But I'm going to cut myself off because I talked way too much. I just had to get a lot out, I guess. So anyway, I hope you got something out of the video, and thanks for sticking around at the end. You are a rock star, and testament to the NIO global community if you did make it to the end. So I'll see you all again very soon.